members, thank you very much for the late hour. Given that hour, but wait, let me get the formalities. My name is Mike Reeser. I serve as Chancellor of the Texas State Technical College System. I'll be doing a combined testimony, and we offered written testimony, which will roughly parallel my comments. Given the late hour, I have gone through and pared my comments down to just its bare essence. Out of respect for your time and the day you surely have had. So I'll go very quickly. I'm going to do a quick status update, 3 asks, and then a conclusion. So, as you know, TSTC is not like the others. We're all workforce all the time, and that's all we've done for 60 years. We do everything we do begins and ends with deep discussions with industrial employers. That's why our graduates are so successful in the workplace. A key technicality is TSTC is a state agency like the systems are, so we don't levy property taxes. And our HEAF funding is subject to a cap. That means we don't get a pro rata share of that. So one of the challenges TSTC has had for decades is funding for capital projects. So the other thing that I'd like to mention, of course, it sets us aside is our formula funding is based on the employment outcomes of our students. And there's 2 key variables. How many people do we put to work in the Texas economy? And then how much do those people make for the first 5 years they're in their job? And those 2 variables drive an aggregated impact on the economy, and we get paid a discounted value off of that impact on the economy. I'm not talking about money, though. The formula is about money, but we've been on this plan since the 2011 session, and the real benefit is the cultural change it made inside our agency. We are obsessed with providing really gainful employment outcomes for our students, and our record speaks for itself. We're truly outstanding at it. So we have 3 exceptional items that I'd like to talk about if I could. During the time we've been on this new approach, you, the legislature, have authorized 5 new campuses for TSTC. Williamson County, Fort Bend, Ellis County, Comal, Guadalupe, and Denton were both the ones you authorized last time. In each of those cases, this new formula takes 7 to 8 years for the students that we graduate to be reflected in our formula, because when you measure employment outcomes, you have to wait for the employment outcomes to occur before the formula can show them. So what you've provided to us over the years is a temporary startup funding. It's the working capital we need to do a new location. And in each case, without failing, it goes away as soon as the formula funding begins. So our first ask is for startup funding for the Comal and Guadalupe County and the Denton County. Good news on the Comal, Guadalupe. The community leaders there were so excited about TSTC coming in. We signed a deal a few weeks ago for them to gift us 140 acres, which will be the home of the new campus there. So those communities are pitching in their part to make that happen. We're in talks now with city fathers in the Denton County area too. The next one is a CCAP-like project that will allow us to build those 2 new campuses out, and also the expansion you authorized in Ellis County. What we're seeking is some kind of debt service, whether it was a CCAP project or something similar to it, that would allow us to get going, because those campuses were created last session, but no funding was provided to it. The funding we have today was earned by all the other campuses 7 years ago, and so siphoning it off of those campuses to put it into new facilities would just not be right. And then finally, the third request is actually on behalf of those industrial employers I just talked about. Last session, the chairman of the Transportation Committee over on the House side and a whole covey of industrial associations approached TSTC and said, CDLs are throttling our growth. And we need a statewide answer, because what we have today is a patchwork quilt of all kinds of various qualities and quantities, and you, as the only statewide two-year school, can offer us a consistent answer across the state. We have, with the 12 campuses you've authorized, we have the ability to put these centers everywhere. We're already a DPS certified tester and trainer. So our graduates have their CDL when they walk out the door. What we need is some capital to set up the training centers in the form of the big trucks, the big open pads, the classrooms for the area, and we can deploy those across the state so that the solution is even everywhere. So those are our three. We also, in terms of our return value farming formula, we should see an increase this time because 7 years ago, we produced a big increase in both the number of people that we put to work and the earnings that they got. So finally, I'd like to say, if I could, that we truly appreciate that in the base bill is the endowment that we sought starting last session. That endowment will fill the gap that our capital funding has right now and will be essentially then a permanent solution to that enduring need we have for more and more lab space. The kinds of spaces that we have to build don't do well in terms of crossing. We can't teach diesel in a welding lab, and we can't teach auto mechanics in an aircraft mechanic lab. Each of the labs that we do has to look like the workplaces in which they're going to do and have the gear that is specific to those particular industries. So that endowment will be the answer to the needs that we have. We provided the legislature last session a 10-year plan that endowment would fund that will allow us to do an important thing, and I'd like to put a placeholder down on this. You've generously given us an array of 12 campuses across the state. I would suggest that the next phase of TSTC's development should focus on maturing and building out those campuses. That new locations are probably not the best approach if instead we could focus on maturing what we have. Some of our campuses only have one building, and they could easily have 4 or 5, and we would fill them up with the demand. And so not all technology has the same impact on the economy. There's a wide range of technology that can be taught, but some offer a higher value than others. At TSTC, we do about 40% of all the diesel technicians created in Texas. We do 85% of the power linemen in Texas. We do, if you look at all the disciplines in advanced manufacturing, we produce 60% of the advanced manufacturing graduates. That's why Governor Abbott came to TSTC in Waco to celebrate Manufacturing Day back in September. And building trades, we do 30%. And we're, thanks to the CCAPs you gave us 2 sessions ago, we're about to blow all those open. I wanted to mention those, and here's why. The Texas Miracle is going to be based on our ability to solve the problems we have in the power grid, the water infrastructure, transportation, construction, and manufacturing. And TSTC is your market leader in all of those key areas. You have a college in TSTC that's focused on what's most important to the economy today and in the future. And so for that reason, we truly appreciate the support you've provided us in the past, and we hope you'll find us worthy in the future too. With that, Madam Chair,
Thank you.
that was as fast as I could go.
That was great. Senator Perry.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I really love the model, and I think you're passionate, and I've seen some of your facilities that are very modern and current to industrial needs. That's because industry is driving what the need looks like. So good for that. Madam Chair, it's taken us almost 2 weeks to find somebody that's even remotely connected to driver's license. So I'm thinking,
keep
just
looking.
maybe, with a slight modification, we may have a winner here. I don't know.
You don't want to win
Are you
that
suggesting we
contest.
take over other agencies? Is that what- Am I the John Sharp of the two-year sector?
Yeah, exactly. Senator Alvarado.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate your work. I've been out to the facility in Harlingen and saw the where the linemen are trained, and this was after Beryl and after we were really giving Centerpoint a hard time about the shortage of in-house linemen. So thank you for y'all's efforts in that. I think there was a new building. I think they had just broken ground on a new building. I'm sure maybe it's already up.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. We cut the ribbon this year on that building.
Okay, wonderful. Congratulations. You're doing such important work that contributes to keeping our economic engine going in Texas, and a lot of the industries in my district are often complaining about not being able to get enough truck drivers. And these are jobs that pay in six figures.
Yes,
and
ma'am,
offer
they do.
great benefits. So I just wanted to confirm to every one of your facilities, institutions will have the CDL program?
No, ma'am. We wouldn't need 12 centers. We'll
Okay.
probably need 6, maybe 7 deployed around the state
Okay.
in order to meet the need. Yeah. Now, it's all a matter of how much do we want to spend. We could put one on every single, but the number would then grow from the 76 that's here.
Okay.
Now, I will tell you what, we already teach it, but it isn't at the scale that this project and the employers that we've worked with imagine. And I might add too, over-the-road trucking is not the only beneficiary here. School districts struggle for school bus drivers.
Bus drivers, yeah.
You know, out in West Texas, oil field trucking is almost like a different science. So learning how to do that takes a whole different training regimen that we would concentrate out there. You know, like oil field safety, tank battery maintenance, you know, that kind of stuff that would go on. Fuel delivery trucking is a completely different variety. And so we'd be able to accommodate all of that.
That's great. So critical to the future of our economy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senator Nichols?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The commercial driver's license problem became exasperated very badly about 8 years ago when the federal government changed the requirements. The DPS, not picking on them, but they went from 125 locations where you could get your CDL license to 25, just like that. And we've been behind the curve ever since, and we're still trying to catch up. It's a much more rigorous license than it used to be, and so I appreciate y'all's efforts in that thing. I toured your facility in Marshall. I believe it was Marshall.
Yes, sir. We have one in Marshall.
Yeah, I toured that one and looked at some of your programs for expansion. So I encourage whatever expansion we can get. I said don't try to necessarily go for the whole thing. Just if we can make incremental progress every session, I think that would be a big improvement. Then you could focus on the best for those, and 2 years later, so a stepped up program. But also, in addition to truck driving, we've got to have homes. We have a home shortage. And when you're building a home, one of those components is plumbers. You have to have a plumber to build a home. And there's been a plumbing shortage that we think we finally broke a hole in the dam a couple of years ago. Can you tell us what you're doing on plumbing?
No
Oh, yeah.
pun intended? No pun intended?
No, yeah. Sir, in this hearing room 4 years ago, you asked me a question. I have to smile at this because you asked me a question, and you may not know it, but you made big things happen.
Oh.
Because what you asked of
You could
me
say that
was,
again if you wanted.
you pointed at me something like this, and you said, "I want you to tell me what you're doing to improve the supply of plumbers in Texas." And it was right on the heels of the storm. And what happened was, within weeks of you asking me that question, Frank Denton and I, and Frank's
back there.
over there, the chairman of the plumbing board, met in Waco and began to study what's holding us back here. And so the first thing that we noticed was Frank only had one testing center. It was in Waco, and it had a backlog of more than 1,000 applicants because it was too small and it was too far away for a lot of the applicants. So the first thing TSTC did was join together with Frank and build a new training center on our Waco campus. That training center by itself doubled the number of applicants in the 2 years that it's been open. So we did that. Number two is, in one of the CCAP projects you gave us, we are building a new big excellence center in building trades on the Waco campus. When you go up and down I-35, look at the giant 120,000 square foot building we're building there. And we're going to triple the number of plumbers that come out of the Waco campus because of that, and we're already the biggest in the state. Plus, your CCAP projects are building a building in Abilene, which will add plumbing, and in Harlingen, which will add plumbing. So with this interagency collaboration that we've built, your question launched an answer to that problem. Just thought.
Thank you.
Senator Colbart.
He's feeling really good over here. Yeah. Speaking of the Waco campus, we gave y'all a lot of money to
Yes, you
update
did.
the old buildings. Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Is all of that completed?
It's all torn down. It's all gone. This new building that I just referenced is going on the land that was opened up when all of that old base housing was taken away. So, and that will be all the growth that occurs in Waco will be across that land right there. Yes, ma'am.
How many acres do y'all have in Waco?
Total about 2,000.
Oh, Lordy.
Now, 1,200 of it is our airport.
Okay.
And as you recall, that airport was a bomber base back in the 60s, so it'll land anything that flies. It's the second busiest airport non-commercial airport in Texas. Only Ross Perot's Alliance has more traffic than our airport.
And that's freight coming in, or?
But we have tenants there who do charter services and other stuff. Airplane repair is a big one. L3 and other defense contractors are tenants on our airport.
Do y'all
it's
get the
used-
revenue for that? All those
Yes,
tenants?
ma'am, we do, yes.
Okay, great.
Our fund balance, we usually net about $500,000 a year.
You're not charging them enough if that's all you're
I
getting.
think we could look at our price schedule, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a huge asset, and
But it's also home to our aerospace program. So like the universities who also teach pilot training, we are a big pilot training institution and have articulation agreements with people like Texas A&M and others, so that if someone wants to be an airline pilot, we're the place to start.
so your funding, as you say, takes a while to realize, and especially on your new campuses, we're looking about giving you an endowment that's large. you'll use that endowment to build future buildings, so you won't come back for a CCAP. Am I right on that? Like once it
The
starts
hope
rolling.
is that the endowment will spin off enough earnings that we don't have to ask for. Now, if you'll let us stand in line, we'll do that too. But it should be a major source of funding for us. Yeah.
So, Madam Chair, and I think one of the questions becomes, I think HB 8 was a move to fund community colleges more like your model with results. And I'm looking forward to the junior college presentation. The one thing that I hit a pause button on is, like we were talking about CDLs. Well, Victoria College right now is huge on CDLs. I mean, they've gotten donated trucks from Freightliner. I've been in the truck. I did not drive it. But I want to make sure that we're not duplicating efforts out there with our community colleges.
Well, if I could, I'd like to offer another way to consider that question.
Okay?
The skills gap in Texas is real. We are behind tens of thousands of graduates. We actually need to have more people teaching a lot of these areas, because as good as TSTC is, we can't solve this problem by ourselves, and neither can the community college. It'll take most of us to solve many of these problems.
Hopefully the coordinating board, and again, I'm not going to give a history lesson, but it was created in the 1960s to make sure that we coordinate these efforts and make sure that we are not being wasteful with the taxpayer dollars. Community colleges, as you talk about, have the ability to tax. That's not a real popular thing. So I don't see any community colleges floating a lot of bonds right now and going to the voters. So it's an interesting dynamic that we look at. And I look forward to working with TSTC and making sure that we're working together to fill the gaps with our community colleges and the new funding that they are receiving to make sure that we fill those needed positions for a growing state.
I'd like to offer, if I could, an add-on
You
to the
wrap
answer.
it up.
Okay, I promise it'll only take a
Yeah,
second.
We got all your stuff.
If we don't place
endowment.
a graduate in a job, we get zero funding. None. If we place a graduate in a minimum wage job, we get zero funding. So the last thing we ever want to do is go into a market that's already well served by a different college and try to compete with them, because we won't sell our product. The only thing we offer is we offer programs that meet an unmet need wherever we may be in the state.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the work you do. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to public community junior colleges. LBB, you have a presentation for us. Andrew,